There you go.
All right, so we're starting our Public Works meeting. First thing on our agenda will be the grant that we just got, which is amazing for, what is it, 211,000 and some change,
Yep.
which is great. So hopefully we can get our next grant in September, and then the borough will have to pay a minimal amount of money for getting this sidewalk going.
Yeah.
So Liz, can you go over, you sent us all, or you sent out the thing last week for all the permitting and all the design work and everything. So how long will that all take if we want to, move as fast as possible to get all this stuff going?
To move through the design work and such and get the HOP permit.
Correct.
So at this point, we're about 2 weeks behind now, but I do still feel confident that we can get through all of it before the end of September with the way that PennDOT's moving right now. They have been so much more efficient with going through their permit processing than they ever have been. And when I spoke to Gus, who's in the HOP department, literally everybody is aware of our project and is waiting for phase 2. So
Great.
Hopefully things will. Apparently our phase 1 was the talk of the town at one point in time. So
Yeah.
Well, it only took 10 years to get phase 1 to be noticed. So now
I think it was 12, but yeah. It's,
really? See, I don't even know all the history.
Wheel.
That's
Yeah.
so funny. Oh,
12-year squeaky wheel.
But yeah, so they're waiting for it. So they're well aware. So I think that, and like when I talked to the infrastructure group and had them put together this proposal to have it ready at the end of July, like they knew that we had this deadline for the end of September. So I was like, if you think that that's not feasible, I need you to tell me now. And that's not what I got the feedback on. Like obviously we've lost 2 weeks when the last council meeting was canceled due to the power outages. But if anything, probably the only thing that will lag is getting that HOP permit. But if we show that we've already submitted to PennDOT and we have design plans, I think we're still going to have a very, very strong grant application for the DCED MTF grant, and getting the funding from the PA Sewer and Small Water, which ended up meeting yesterday instead of next month, which was awesome that they were able to meet earlier so that we have that answer going into this application process. And we already have the other DCED MTF grant for the 100,000. I think that bodes well for a very, very strong project. So I'm excited. I think we're going to do well, and I think we're going to be able to get all the way out to the easement.
Which would be incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should, at the last meeting, well, 2 meetings ago, because we canceled the last meeting, I'm pretty sure the meeting's in like an hour, so it's not a problem. We'll make another motion, but I don't think there's going to be any issue with council of moving forward as fast as possible, and after all the design work proposal and everything, because I'm pretty sure, I don't know if Uri and John, you remember, I'm pretty sure we okayed for spending all the money for the design work and everything that was in that proposal anyway, but we'll just put another motion just to be safe, since we're meeting in less than an hour now. And
oh, did you guys? I don't. So I know that we had gotten the okay to do the survey work because we all knew that we were under this time crunch, but we hadn't given you a formal proposal with the design costs until the end of July. Like we had given you rough estimates back in the beginning of the summer when there was the conversation about getting the credit, but we hadn't given you a full estimate of what that would be. So I've been under the impression that we hadn't been approved yet to do the design work.
yeah, no, it's totally fine. We have, as I said, we have a meeting in an hour. So I was pretty sure, but I haven't read through the minutes because it's not that big of a deal since we're meeting. That we said we okayed the design work, and that it was estimated at under $100,000 or so.
Yeah.
And it is. So that's why I figured it's not going to be an issue with council. But since we are meeting, we'll just make a motion during that part of it, and I'm sure everybody in council will be okay, but we'll see then, and we can get this going.
Okay, good. Yeah, because the infrastructure group, they know that right after this meeting, I'm going to give them the green light, and they're going to go full steam ahead.
Yep.
So Liz, this one that you're going to be applying for goes to potentially the easement.
Yes.
Okay, does anybody remember way back when, 20 years ago. Susan, do you remember, did we anticipate hoping to get it all the way to the end of North Main?
The original stuff that I've seen when I was going back through the project was to go all the way out to Dolington, to go all the
Okay.
way out to the border, the municipal border. So that's still our ultimate goal, 100%.
Okay.
But Susan, go ahead.
Oh, I agree with you that the goal was to go to Dolington.
Okay.
Reading on Facebook about the grant that you just received, it seems to be directly related to drainage and water.
Yes, so it doesn't cover the entire cost, unfortunately. But it covered.
$211,000 worth of drainage.
So no, about 100,000 of that is the traffic control, actually. So when we applied for this grant, we did our best to include whatever we could that wasn't straight up drainage, but was like overall project costs, to see if we could supplement things as much as possible. So yeah, I can remember seeing a line item for the traffic maintenance, because that was the biggest cost we ended up having for phase one, was the traffic control, which was crazy. It ended up being that much. So luckily we were able to include that in this application for the PA sewer and small water, and that is now covered by that grant. So when I was looking at the numbers, it seems like to get up to Cold Springs, the rest of the construction, we're about 176 and change shy for that. But if we get this additional DCED-MTF grant, who knows how much closer we'll get. And obviously this next application is going to be all the way out to the easement, not just to Cold Springs.
Should we be applying for grants to pay for the whole? I mean, I know that's like future phases, but in order to kind of line it up, does it make sense to try to already start getting money to go all the way out to Dolington?
To Dolington?
Yeah.
It can't hurt necessarily to have shovel-ready design plans by the end of September. We surveyed up to the easement, and that's what we have. So I think that what we learned through the phase one project was things are more expensive than we initially thought, with the need to have to include the drainage because it is a state road, and that we're better off with trying to do it in these phases. But applying to go out to Dolington in next year's grants, I think is totally in line, and I don't see why we can do that.
Yeah, I'm remembering being on council, and as Paula brought up, I mean, it didn't have phases originally. There was one plan.
It was supposed to just go out
and
to
it went the
Dolington.
whole way. So how much of that design work was completed and is usable already? Do you have it?
I can speak to this a little bit because I kind of know about it. All the
Okay.
design work that was previously done can't be used because the way it was created is not the way we're moving forward with it whatsoever. It had a right-of-way issue and a few other issues that we're not including in the new plan. And the new plan is much less problematic than the old plan was. So even if we had any of that, which we do, I do actually have a hard copy of it that I got from a previous council member. None of it would be applicable.
So how far out did they initially do the design work, Matt?
To Dolington.
They did.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But it includes the previous right away. So it's coming into
where it has the buffer between the road and the sidewalk.
it's basically cutting into every resident's property by like 10 to 12 feet.
Yeah,
and the sidewalk's basically in the middle of everybody's front lawn.
Yeah, which no one's happy with. Okay.
Yeah, nobody would want that.
Yeah, my understanding was that RVE did design out to Cold Springs after we got the initial grant back, and it wasn't to fund the whole project. So we cut it into this phase one. We were like, okay, now we're gonna go out to Cold Springs, and we did the design out to Cold Springs. And then we started getting into it, and the drainage was more expensive than expected, and so was the traffic control. And we were only able to make it to I'm forgetting the name of the word, wayfaring, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where things stood. And so the HOP that we ended up getting was only applicable up to Cold Springs. So when we applied for the PA sewer and small water, the idea was that we had the HOP out through Cold Springs. That's what we were going to apply for. We could definitely move forward with it right away, and that's what we did. And then since then, the attitude of council has been, with the bridge project and all that sort of stuff, we should really just aim to get out towards the easement. So all future grants are out to the easement.
Yeah.
So just like to get on the same page in the history of it and what we need to do moving forward. I think, as I recall, part of the issue was the cost. There were two things. One was the buffer was considered to be, like more pleasant to walk on further from the cars, but more controversial because of the front yards. And so I'm good with, the new plan. But one of the issues was the cost of the drainage and the curb was
Yeah.
way higher. So if we can, this grant that we just got,
Yeah.
is that an annual grant that we could get, we could sort of
Again?
plan to try to get
Yeah.
future iterations
Absolutely.
of it
Yep.
and take care of the cost of the traffic and the drainage.
Yes.
So then we just need to do the other part. It
Yeah.
becomes much,
It becomes so much more affordable. Absolutely.
yeah. So I think we should be looking to apply for, like, we kind of have to think, it'll take 1 year to do this part, and then the next year we'll do that
Yeah.
part. And
Yeah.
that's grant.
No, we do. We absolutely have to be strategic about it. And
Yeah.
and this was the first year that the PA sewer and small water actually allowed you to bifurcate projects like that. They didn't used to allow that. So this was the first time that they did. We
Right.
saw that as an
Great news.
opportunity and tried
Right.
and applied for it, and it worked out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, great job. It's really great.
And that's why we also, all the design work that's being done is going out to the easement. So right there, that would be the next phase. So if we do this phase, which we're hoping to do, as soon as possible, we apply for next round of grants. If we get those and get started on that, then we would probably start design work to go even further, just so we would have that
Well,
for the
especially
next.
since, once we got through the HOP that takes us all the way out to the easement, as long as we keep renewing that HOP and staying on top of it, it doesn't matter how long it takes us to get the funding to do the actual construction. Like, once we have that, we have that. So that'll be good for sure. And then
How much are we
additionally,
short? I'm sorry.
right now, to get out to Cold Springs, we're short about 176. And then to get all the way out to the easement, that's probably another 350, if I'm remembering the numbers correctly. And then the other good
Including
news,
the grant that we just received? Or,
Correct.
yes, yeah. And then the other good news, though, is that now that we're closing out phase 1 from the MTF grant from PennDOT, we can now reapply for that next year. And I was told by the grant coordinator on that end that we would be much more marketable now that we've closed out a project. So apparently, if you have an open project with them, you go to the bottom of the list. I didn't know that. So that was good to learn. And we are in that process with them. So we'll be more than ready to reapply for that. And I think at that point, it wouldn't be a bad idea to take it all the way out to Dolington.
by the time we're done, we're going to be experts in creating sidewalks in small towns, and you guys can all be consultants to other towns.
But yeah, so that was really good news and very exciting to hear. So I'm pumped about it. I'm excited for you guys to approve the design work and to get going on that and get ready to submit the DCAD grant. I don't know what else Matt has on his agenda, but I know that the borough sent out their request for all of us to provide our budgets for 2021. And I was really hoping that we would be able to discuss what were the plans for capital projects for this year outside of the ones that we already know about. As, for example, are we trying to do a 2021 road program? We didn't do one this past year.
Paul, is there any roads that you know that are pressing that need to get taken care of in the borough?
Nope,
Yeah, I would
no,
recommend,
none at
since
all.
I think the borough's in pretty good road shape this year, to just focus on our current projects, which are pretty large, of getting the sidewalk and the bridge done.
Yeah.
Since we're closing out the Main and Afton Signal project, which is great. That was a huge undertaking. So I just really don't want to put too much on the borough's plate, financially or work related, for everybody involved. So if nothing's pressing, which I don't think there is, and Paul is saying there's not, I would say just whatever open projects we have right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any roads that are pressing. The only thing that comes to mind is Whiskey Hill and trying to deal with that. Because we can at least, I don't like curbing the whole area because that just increases the velocity of the runoff and makes problems elsewhere. But obviously what is there now is not a long-term solution. Ideally, we would add more stormwater infrastructure there, but that's not something that Liquid Fuels does. Like that's something that's probably like the flood mitigation grant that maybe we go after eventually. But I know no residents have come to a meeting yet, but I know that they have complained to Paula. That's definitely something where if we wanted to do just curbing, that Liquid Fuels covers that. And they often will do ramps and stuff as well. So I was thinking that if the Main and Afton ramp, if that one was bad enough, like that could be something that Liquid Fuels could be used for as well. But I can't really think of anything else. It seems like a very minimal project.
Yeah.
But you
And
get,
we even know what the best solution or what residents want for that, since we've already tried 2 different things and nobody seems to like it. So
And it's probably a good idea to start getting ready for one of our big roads. So banking that money and
Yeah.
not spending it, so that, God forbid, when Letchworth needs to be done, it's $300,000, we have the money.
yeah,
So
I kind of
I don't
agree.
think we need to seek out any projects. I would not suggest that. I'd suggest starting to bank that money and get ready for some large roads down the road.
How much
Okay.
do we have in Liquid Fuels currently, Paula? An estimate? It doesn't have to
We,
be.
I want to say like 70,000.
Yeah, I would kind of agree that we could save
Yeah.
it, and as long as there's nothing pressing, we can deal with it later, or we can have a meeting with residents of Whiskey Hill and take it from there. But for right now, I don't think we should plan any other projects unless somebody else has any other ideas. Or
Does Liquid Fuels cover things like paying for crosswalks?
I don't think it
I don't-
does, but I can check on that.
No, it does speed humps, but I don't think that it does the crosswalks unless it's replacing one that was there. Like I know that can be covered if it was originally there, like they'll replace in kind. I don't know if they do like brand new ones.
Will they replace it with like a better, like like what is called decorative, although it's really a safety crosswalk when they have like the bricks, or it looks like bricks, but it's not really
Stamped.
bricks.
Oh, the stamped ones?
Stamped.
Yeah, I don't think they do, Ori, but I could check on that tomorrow and get back to you.
Yeah, that would be great. It would be nice to be able to continue. We had a plan a while back to do that to all the crosswalks, and with Main and Afton being close to being done, that would be like the great final.
Yeah.
There.
I mean, it couldn't hurt to reapply for the Arley grant. And then there's also other safety protocols that for some of the state roads that we can ask to have those sorts of things done, where they have like a totally separate bucket of funding. You just have to speak to a very specific vein of PennDOT to get placed on their project. So like typically that vein of PennDOT that deals with safety, they do contracts at the county level. So we would have to be in touch with the county to get put on like their list of things to do that. And from my understanding, when we did a whole route study of Route 23 through Phoenixville and the surrounding municipalities, and we went out with the safety people from PennDOT, and what they kind of told us was that it's it's a matter of a conversation. Like you just have to talk to the right people and get put on their list. So that might be worth looking into for our state roads, but when it comes to the local roads, I think we're kind of on our own unless we find a grant.
Well, they actually took, we had one that we lost on Main Street by College because it was a four-way and we lost the direction that goes, we lost the Main Street part of it.
Right, when they repaved.
They didn't pay to replace.
Right,
what
because
what
they did not put that in, we put that in. So they were not going to replace something
That they weren't
that
responsible.
they did not, yeah, they weren't responsible for.
But legally, you're allowed to put a crosswalk at any intersection. You can do that. Like if there's the full intersection, you can do that. It's the mid-block ones that require additional approval by PennDOT and stuff. But if there's like a legit intersection, you're allowed to put that. There might be requirements for having signage at a certain distance ahead of the crosswalk that's solely dependent on sight distance and all that sort of stuff that would need to be looked at, but you're allowed to do that.
If
Susan,
you
I
have a
see your
T, you know, like can you put a crosswalk?
At a T,
Yeah.
some of those are different. I know four-way intersections, you're allowed to do it right off the bat. I don't
Right.
know about T's. I can ask Derek about that. Let's see, T crosswalks. I'm sure there's different requirements. Susan, go ahead.
Before anyone gets really excited about decorative crosswalks, I'd urge you to go to Washington Crossing and see what has happened to their decorative crosswalks. They haven't aged well at all.
Well, I
So,
wonder if theirs was painted or what, because there's definitely they do it with these like weird stamps now. It's a little bit different.
I think it was stamped because you can see how it's almost delaminated.
Mhm.
It's
Oh.
not, they certainly weren't real bricks. So,
No, they're not real bricks, but I think that the technology keeps changing. But I think the thing is that paint costs a certain amount and lasts a certain amount of time. The thermoplastic or whatever it's called, that costs a certain amount, and that might be the sweet spot. But then for certain areas, I think we have to just look at the longevity of the traffic flow and figure out the cost, if there's additional cost. And if we can get a grant to cover it, wouldn't it be nice to have a really substantial crosswalk, especially at that at our, sort of our main intersection of the entire town.
Yeah, I mean, like I still think the flashing pedestrian crossings for some of them was not necessarily a bad idea. That was something that Sandy was spearheading, and we went through the ARLA grant and we were not awarded that last round, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't resubmit or reevaluate what our package looks like.
Yeah.
Susan.
may I sort of go to the Main and Afton intersection?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know you're all really very excited and I'm going to be a wet dishcloth here. But when you all were evaluating the design, was the scale and impact of those posts and those arms evaluated? Because I'm sure the posts aren't as big as the ones at I-95, but given the scale of the intersection, they certainly seem that way. And there really isn't a vista left at that intersection that is not obscured by post and arms. As far as looking at the historic character of Yardley Borough, this has been very detrimental to it. You now have an intersection that's all traffic control, and the buildings are very diminished because of that. So my question is, in this process, who was responsible for evaluating scale and whether there was a intrusive way,
Option.
even to getting smaller posts, smaller arms.
The only thing I can say to that I can speak securely on is that unfortunately when they are state intersections, they just have standards, and that's kind of what gets ordered. Like they have places that do that. So it probably wasn't considered, unfortunately. I was not personally involved in the design, so I can certainly circle back with Derek and find out how that all went. But I know that typically when we do intersections that are for PennDOT, we are given details of what the mast arms and those things are supposed to be, and that's kind of like the end of the story. Like there's not a lot that's done, but Yardley is a historic district, so I'm curious as to what happened and if anybody got to look at that and if that was taken into consideration. I couldn't tell you that off the bat, but I can certainly investigate.
I'd appreciate that, because in my opinion, this is the second bad outcome dealing with PennDOT specifications. The first was Lake Afton with all the curbs and their storm drainage requirements, et cetera, that ended up being very detrimental to the overall character of the lake. And now we have PennDOT standards being imposed upon Maine and Afton, and it's all done and it's too late now.
Right.
At some point in time, Yardley Borough needs to fight for the character of Yardley Borough and counter PennDOT.
Right.
At least make an effort to get what is best for Yardley Borough.
Yeah. No, agreed. So I will definitely look into that and see what happened and figure out where maybe Yardley's interests were circumvented, and to see how that can be avoided in the future. Because I agree with you, Yardley's adorable, and it would be a shame if these kinds of projects continue to happen and it degrades the character of it. I don't think anybody's interested in that.
And my husband's suggestion is for the pedestrian signal thingies.
Yeah.
And I haven't looked at this myself, but he said there's about 2 feet of post that extend above the, I don't know, light, whatever you want to call them. So you have the thingy with the human form
Right.
across now, but above that, there's still another 2 feet of post exposed, whether that can be cut off.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. Alrighty.
Why didn't this come before HARB? I mean, things like this generally don't come before HARB.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I'm wondering. Like, if it ever did, like, you would expect it to do so since it's right in the downtown district of what's considered historic. So I'm kind of curious as to why it possibly didn't. I don't know. Anything when PennDOT comes in, things kind of get bulldozed through, unfortunately.
Sorry to cut everybody off, but the meeting actually ends at 7, and there's a general government meeting that happens, and we have to use the same account. So
did we get through everything?
Yeah, well, we missed the Mary Yardley Bridge, but anything else that anybody has any questions on or needs to be discussed, we can discuss at the full council meeting. That's not an issue. So if anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns, we can hash it out then also. All right.
Can I quickly ask you where the borough stands in regards to the current FEMA application? That's the only other capital cost that I can think of where we're supposed to be supporting you guys that's outside of general engineering.
Paula?
The current FEMA, did you say? I think we should hear something pretty soon on an elevation grant. I'll keep you posted on that.
Okay, all right. Then I'll work with Kelly and we'll try to give a ballpark to include
Kelly knows.
in our budget estimate for 2021. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All righty.
All right. Well,
Thank you all.
good night, everybody. I'll see most of you in 29 minutes.
Sounds good. Bye, guys.
Later.
Bye.